Hello, world and universe. Welcome to the Trevor Donald Experience. Manifest your truth. And if you're new to the channel, please hit that like and subscribe button. And for all my continued followers, I want to say thank you. And this is an opinion-based video channel where I try to open your eyes and ears up to some of the travails and tribulations that take place throughout our cities, our states, our country, and sometimes around the world. And this particular story today has a connection with a very heartfelt city of mine, Chicago. A young man from Chicago who was a truck driver, 21 years old, who ended up traveling to North Carolina. And unfortunately, there is a chasm, a dark cloud around how this young man was found dead, deceased. And there is a relationship or an alleged allegation that he may have been hung or lynched. However, the police is saying that he committed suicide. So there is a little bit or a lot of controversy that's being talked about on how this 21-year-old truck driver ended up deceased. And apparently his parents and family members said he had no history of mental illness, was not going through anything heavily stressful or anxiety ridden. And the family out of Chicago wants answers, of course, to their loved one who was found dead. And he was just at the beginning of his life, 21 years old. So let's go. Let's see what this story is about. Family of Aurora man found dead near tree with rope around neck in North Carolina speaks out. Henderson, North Carolina. The family of Aurora man Javion McGee and their attorney spoke publicly Wednesday after nearly a two-hour meeting with investigators about the 21-year-old truck driver's death. McGee was found dead September the 11th in a wooded area. A 911 caller and McGee's family said he was hanging from a tree. The 911 caller said he was hanging from a tree. Police said he wasn't. So there's some contradiction there. The Vance County Sheriff described him as having his back up against a tree and a rope around his neck. He said there was no lynching. This is an absolute tragedy, no matter how it panned out, attorney Harry Daniels said. The pictures that we saw were very clear that he was hanging, not in the manner in which you may have seen in the 60s, 20s, or 30s, 1930s, but there's nothing to take away from it. Sheriff Curtis Brame said there was no foul play suspected in McGee's death. He said preliminary information pointed to a possible suicide. So there's controversy there on how this young man ended up dying. The manner and the cause of death of Javion has not been determined at this time, Attorney Daniels said. So for any suggestion that it's a suicide, anybody stating that it was a suicide would be grossly premature. McGee's family, many of whom live in Illinois, were concerned to learn that their beloved son was found hanging from a tree. They said that he never had any history of suicidal thoughts or depression. He was a trucker who took up that job following in his father's footsteps, possibly looking to establish a family legacy and a successful business. He also had plans in the coming days to travel to Texas to hang out with some of his cousins. Because they were concerned about McGee's death not being a suicide, but investigators jumped to that conclusion. The family reached out to attorneys to help make sure the investigation was completely and thoroughly and fairly looked at. A week after McGee's death, his family was able to speak with investigators in person. Attorney Lee Merritt said the discussion took about 2 hours and went through all the evidence gathered so far. We're investigating the lynching of a young man in 2024. It would be a misnomer to say that that kind of thing does not happen anymore, Merritt said. Merritt clarified that he and the family did not know whether a lynching actually took place, but they wanted to make sure there was a thorough investigation to determine exactly what happened. Our main focus here is to find out what happened to Javion. This family is not here to point the finger at the sheriff's office. They want to find out what happened. Wherever that evidence may lead, then that's something that they can deal with, Attorney Daniels said. At the end of the day, the most important thing is that you are here to ensure transparency moving forward. Brain released new details following the family's news conference. Included in the updated timeline of what happened was information that the preliminary autopsy found that McGee did not have any defensive wounds and there was no sign of physical or essay assault. Attorneys Merritt and Daniels said the family planned to get an independent autopsy to compare the findings. One of the many new details in the above timeline released by the sheriff's office is about 16 hours before he was found dead. McGee supposedly gave $228 to a homeless person outside of Walmart. That person told investigators that McGee told him, "I don't know how much it is, but if I had more, I would give it to you." The timeline also details more surveillance video that investigators have showing McGee that night before he was found dead. The video evidence was reportedly part of what was included in a 2-hour meeting with McGee's family and attorneys. McGee's mother and father spoke briefly at the end of the Wednesday's news conference. They thanked everyone for the support they received and asked to be kept in prayer. McGee's father also talked about how his son was hardworking and competitive. He also had a message of unity. He said, "If I can tap into Javion, I would say he wants this country to come together, not all this divided stuff. We all need to come together, because if there wasn't a divide, this wouldn't have happened," Corey McGee said. On Monday, the Vance County Sheriff's Office released a video showing the moments McGee bought the rope the sheriff says was used in his death. This is the other controversial part. In the video, you see a man purchasing a utility rope from the self-checkout line at a Walmart in Henderson, North Carolina. You then see him walking out of the store with the rope in his hand. The 911 call from the man who discovered Javion's body has also been released to the public. And this is what it says. This is the operator. Vance County 911, what's your emergency? This is the caller. I have some guys out here mowing the grass, and I got a man who hung himself in a tree. Operator says, the guy hung himself in the tree. The caller says, yeah, he looks dead. He's still got a rope around his neck. So that's the story. Well, there are a few holes in it, as you can tell by the operator and the caller's conversation. The caller says that they got a man who hung himself from a tree. The sheriff's office is saying that he was laying next to a tree with a rope around his neck. So there's an eyewitness that is saying that this young man was hung from a tree. You also have a scenario where, according to the sheriff's office, that he purchased this rope at a Walmart. Well, we have to see what that video surveillance shows. Is that really him or someone else? You got this controversy. The family says that this is what allegedly happened. Of course, they weren't there. They're in the Aurora, Chicago area. There's a lot of suspicion and rumor and innuendo. And then in Henderson, where they actually found this young man, and it depends on who found him first and what they actually saw. The sheriff's office, of course, from a public safety standpoint, a tourism standpoint, the police, they definitely want to say that he was not hung. that sends an entire vestige of racism, Willie Lynch laws in that era, segregation, and I'm sure North Carolina does not want that rumor mill to start growing and emancipating itself throughout the country. I think it's very similar. This situation and how the sheriff's office may be dealing with this is very similar to when you have serial killers. The police departments wait a very long time before they inform the public that there's a dangerous person out there, because it affects everything, tourism, the businesses. There becomes a heightened stress and anxiety for the citizens that live in those cities, those states, and those communities. So there may be a rush to judgment on the family's part out of Aurora that they know Javion very well. His mom is dead. They raised him, and he was not in a stressed out situation, and he would never do this. That's their supposition. And then the sheriff's office, of course, they're going to want to be quick to say that no one allegedly hung this gentleman from a tree, and all the symbolism that displays from, as I said, the Willie Lynch era, the segregationist era and time, and of course the state of North Carolina and the city of Henderson does not want that kind of reputation to be out there. And also during the Jim Crow era, I know I kept saying Willie Lynch, but the Jim Crow era, the segregationist times that, as I repeat again, the state of North Carolina, let alone the city of Henderson, does not want that to be a reputation that's taking place. So they're going to put a muzzle on it to a certain degree, and they do not want this to make national news that there's a potentiality of a young African American man that was found hanging from a tree. So there is a lot of debate. The lawyers and the police departments will have to deal with this. This is a very unfortunate situation with a young man who was just beginning his life at 21, and we are seeing way too much death and destruction throughout our country and this world today, and we have got to regain our humanity, our positivity, our spirituality, and being God-fearing people and trying to live a healthy life. This is why I do these videos. So there's controversy in Henderson, North Carolina on what actually happened to this young 21-year-old man, Javion McGee, that was found either hanging from a tree with a rope around his neck, with the possibility of being lynched, and or he was found laying next to a tree with a rope around his neck. Either way, it is disastrous and devastating to the family and to his unfortunate death. And we've got to make this world a much better place. Tell me what you think of this story. This is the Trevor Donald Experience. Manifest your truth.